I'm excited that we get to dive in because we don't know each other. So this is my opportunity to get to know you in front of a lot of people. But it really is that opportunity. And where I wanted to start is you have a passion. You're on a mission to help smallholder farmers get out of poverty. And I want to know why. Where does that come from?
Actually, I have like kind of two stories, which is really the same story. Yeah. When I was young, I was maybe 10 years old. I came across the story of this Thai gentleman. His name is Nakasatian. So he's a graduate from Oxford in, I think, environmental engineering. He came back to Thailand and he worked in environmental conservation to protect illegal logging and so forth. Yeah. And, to cut a long story short, at the age of 31, one night he wrote a letter and he got a gun and he shot himself. Wow. So what had happened was a lot of these mafia who were doing illegal logging, obviously he was encroaching on their territory and they threatened to kill his family. So he took his own life to protect his family. But the letter that he wrote, after that, started a whole environmental movement in Thailand. And because of his death, we now have 70% of the rainforest still protected. And it's a World Heritage now. So I learned about his life when I was about 10, and I was like, wow, this guy is a hero. So he became kind of my idol. Yeah. Like, for someone else it's Michael Jordan. Yeah. For someone else it's, Bill Gates. And for me, it was like this unknown, gentleman. Yeah. So I kind of had that, really curiosity. And I remember I was 16 years old, I moved to Australia at the age of 14, and at the age of 16, I was sitting in a bus to Sydney Opera House with my best friend, Duncan. So we had this conversation, and I remember it like very vividly. He said, Neil, what do you want to do when you grow up? And I said, I want to go back home and want to work to protect the forest. And I said, so Duncan, what do you want to do? And he said that I want to go to Africa and I want to start a school for the underprivileged children. So we had a very kind of innocent conversation, right? And you fast forward 10 years, I was 26, and I was an investment banker. Right? I couldn't, and then I'm not gonna say what happened in between, but I got a very good education, and I remember I was enjoying my job, and then one day I got a school newsletter. Yeah. And I never read, it's like high school newsletter. I mean, I graduated high school was in 2000, right? Yeah. So I was like, but anyway, I opened it for some reason, right? And they had this scoop on the alumni. And then I turned the page and there was Duncan. And I hadn't seen him for maybe since we graduated high school. We just lost touch. So there was a photo of him. He's like this, handsome, blonde hair, blue-eyed guy. He's, wearing ripped clothes. And there's about almost 100 African children surrounding him. Yeah. So I read the story. And that he got a national scholarship after he graduated. Then he went to Africa. And he followed his dream. So the next day I quit my job. Wow. Yeah. It's a true story. It reminded me. And I did what I guess every young people do. I went backpacking across the world. And I remember my dad gave me a phone call. He said, "Are you crazy? You quit your job and you went backpacking?" And I'm like, no, I'm thinking of ideas to change the world. The fire was back. And went through a long phase and went to a business school because I still couldn't find the right business model and execution. Yeah. So I started that during my MBA, which was about 8 years ago.
Yeah. And why farmers though?
Yeah, because 8 years ago, Thailand was the world's #1 rice exporter. And I found out that the average earnings is 40 cents per day, which is 6 times below the poverty line. Wow. So that kind of blew my mind.
How many farmers?
So 17 million farmers, right? So that's about a quarter of the country. And for those of you that have been to Thailand, which is probably all of you, it's like a paradise. So you see Bangkok, Chiang Mai, Phuket, right? But there's the northeastern part of Thailand that no one has ever been to, even a Thai person. and that's where most of the farmers are.
Yeah.
So I thought like, wow, it's amazing that we get all this story, and then there's like 17 million people in this country alone, and we're so proud of being the world's #1 rice exporter, but they are suffering.
Yeah.
So that really got me thinking about the problem.
Yeah. So a lot of us, I think, we look at a global issue like that, right? So you have 17, or in this case, national issue, 17 million farmers living well below the poverty line, 40 cents a day. We look at that and we see an insurmountable problem. I mean, what gave you the courage, or where did the idea come from to create this business?
I'm a big believer that everything comes through innovation, right? So I thought, literally like one night I was sitting in a room with one of my friends in business school, and I said, who's like the best rice scientist in the world? Like literally, I said, who's the best rice scientist in the world?
Yeah.
Because we're trying to help rice farmer, right?
Yeah.
I mean, most of them grow rice in Thailand, in most of Southeast Asia, in fact. And then, my friend turned around and she looked at me, she said, "You crazy?" And I said, you know what? Let's go to Google. Because that was, 8 years ago, right? 2011. Yeah. So I typed in Google, like, who's like the best rice scientist in the world? And I'm so lucky that he wasn't French or Brazilian. Yeah. He's a Thai person. Yeah. Because it makes sense. But he graduated at, I think, Cornell in the United States. He got a PhD there. He's a kind of rice genomic, major. And so he's been working on rice development for 30 years. He's won every international award there is to win. And I said, you know what? I want to meet this guy. He must have something good, right? Like, it's such a typical entrepreneur thing. Yeah. And then I told my friend, I said, okay, let's schedule a meeting with him. And then she's like, what do you want me to do? I sent a letter to his university, because he was working at university, right? So she sent an email, she sent a letter, got no reply. And I said, we just call him. Yeah, why bother, right? So they didn't respond. So I used my investment banking skill. I found his mobile phone on the internet, right? Because something investment bankers are good at. Yeah. I remember I called him on his mobile. I think he was in a meeting, and he's like, "Who's this?" And I try not to sound like an insurance salesperson or a credit card salesperson, right? So I gave a 30-second pitch over the phone. Yeah. And I said, you know what? I need to talk with you, because I have this dream. And then anyway, he stepped out of the meeting. We spoke on the phone for 2 hours.
What? Wow.
The next day I drove about 3 hours to see him, and we spent 6 hours together. Yeah. And he invented this amazing rice. It's like a natural crossbreeding over decades. Yeah. And he said, Neil, I've got the healthiest rice in the world. Yeah. And my first question was okay, so what do you want to do with it? And he's like, I want this to help farmers. And my second question was, is it delicious? Because if no one's gonna eat it, no matter how healthy. And he's like, I don't know. So I remember I cooked the rice, and I was like, I hope this tastes good. And it was amazingly delicious. Oh. And I'm like, this is it. Everyone needs to be growing this rice. Yeah. And I thought it was gonna be an easy, path. Right? We got this, we got the innovation. Yeah. And little did I know, that it's not easy to convince farmers and the whole community and the politics of it. So but that was where I felt that was a big problem, and then I went after the innovation, and I found someone who's spent his whole life innovating. But he didn't know what to do with it because he's a scientist. So I told him, I said, let's do a deal. I'm going to start a social enterprise. I'm going to take millions of people out of poverty. You're going to win a Nobel Prize.
This is weird.
What do you think? And he's like, you're crazy. And I'm like, okay, let's try. I mean, you got nothing to lose. Yeah. I mean, he's a very well-known researcher, so he gets paid by the government, and I mean, he's doing well. Yeah. Right. I mean, he's not struggling, right? I mean, he's right at the top of the tree. So I said, what you got to lose? So that's kind of how the whole thing started. Yeah. Was this? Actually, I brought it here, but nice. I don't know if you can see it. It's it's called Jasberry rice. It's dark purple, almost like a black rice. Yeah. But it just got 4 times higher antioxidant than quinoa.
Wow. What?
Yeah.
Why are we eating this right now?
Yeah.
We have more than 15 vitamin, and thanks to David, I'm shipping all the rice in a couple of days, and everyone will get to eat it. So
Nice. Hey!
actually, David gave me the idea during breakfast. He's like, Neil, why don't you? And I'm like, I got a Malaysian distributor, so I call up my Malaysian distributor in KL. I'm like, can you ship like a bunch of this rice over? She's like, sure. So you guys will get to try it in a couple of days, and I hope you like it.
How many farmers are you working with now?
So 8 years ago, I started with 25 family. Right now, I work with 2,500 family, which is about 12,000 people.
Yeah, incredible. And for them, what's the difference? So for us as the consumer, sounds like the product tastes better. It's exceptionally healthier than just regular rice. But how does it change the life for the farmer?
Yeah, with the farmer, so of course they get a double the market price. So I do this thing with, I call like the market-driven solution poverty. So I work out the market side first, like what do people want, how much is the price, and I work through the value chain, and I give what I call the maximum sustainable price for the farmer. So this is the maximum price they can get without breaking your bank, breaking the consumer in the Walmarts of the world, right? So that from a pricing standpoint, but actually behind the scene, we convert them from chemical to organic farming. They get certified USDA and EU standard. We provide training, microfinancing. Now we install like an IT system to track their debt level. So all of this is done because of the reason why I started the company was to help people out of poverty. And if I couldn't track it, if I couldn't find a way to enhance the yield, reduce the cost. So I guess we were trying to do too many things actually. We were just juggling so many things because I wanted to make like a systematic change. And there just were too many problems within the system.
Yeah, so you had to look at all of them.
That's why it's been 8 years already, and I'm only at 2,500 family.
Not only, you made a comment earlier. You said you're this kind of crazy social entrepreneur, but Neil actually, you got recognized as the best social enterprise in the world, correct?
Well, no, I wouldn't give that title.
Didn't you get that recognition?
Well, yeah, I mean there was there was someone else calling us, right?
Yeah, of
Me
course.
saying it.
Of course.
There was this it's called the Shiva's Venture competition, right? So they said we want to find the best social enterprise in the world, and there's a $1 million prize. So I just apply, right? I didn't even apply. I got my staff to apply, and anyway, we ended up winning in Thailand. So we represented Thailand, and there were I think 30 other countries. So we went to Los Angeles to in front of these amazing judges, right? So and Halle Berry, who was I guess she was a social entrepreneur, and I literally like had zero expectation because I had gotten to know a little bit like this group, just amazing people, impacting millions of lives. And I remember when they announced that I won, I literally was like, oh, like thank you. I wasn't like I think like they captured it on camera. So I think the fact that it's just one of those things where I think what really touched the audience and the judges was that we really focus on telling the story of the people. Whereas, a lot of social enterprises were like, look at the numbers and all this, right? And my whole presentation was very much about like, what does social impact mean? Because when you say like, 2,500 family, I share some story of this family and how it has transformed their children's life and their life. And I think some people were crying in the audience, and I mean, this is a true story. I was crying, but it's just that emotional to me, and it's why I'm doing this. So, okay, it's great to share scale, but there is people. I mean, these are like us, they have children, they have family, they have their struggle. 100 times worse, and I think it's important to tell their story. So I kind of use that stage, be like, hey, like I'm proud to tell their story, and no matter what happened, win or lose, that's good. At least they get their story heard,
So this will be my last question, because that was such a good lead up. Can you tell us the story?
Yeah, so the story, So her name is Meba, right? So actually I met her about 5 years ago. She's just like really energetic lady. She's 55 years old. So when we first met, she was doing chemical farming. She had about like 5 acres of land, and she had $10,000 of debt. It's very normal. It's a debt that her whole lifetime she probably will never pay off. Earning 40 cents per day, right?
Yeah.
And she had, 3 children who were working in a factory, minimum wage, just outside of Bangkok. But she was one of the best farmers. I remember the first day I met her, she's like, "What's this rice and how do I grow it?" And she was just on it. And within 3 years, she's paid off all $10,000 of debt. She's saved up enough money, and she's increased her land holding from 5 acres to 13 acres. And most importantly, her 3 children who were working in a factory is now back on the farm working with her, because they now have a sustainable life, hope for the future. And her land is now certified organic. I told her story a lot because, I'm like, wow, that is amazing, and it's the reason I wake up every day. And I think I'm getting to know more and more stories now as we grow, and it's just incredible. And the amount of, I was just a kid when I started, and I remember when they first looked at me, they were like, who's this kid? And most of them were in their 60s and 50s, and I slept at their home for months because I didn't know what I was doing. I needed to learn. I was like, I never grow rice before in my life, and I was like, shit. So I slept on their floor. They took care of me. They gave me food. I would give them money. They wouldn't take it. So I told them I was doing this research project on organic farming. So I had to lie to them. I didn't know what to say. I was a student. And then they're like, okay, you sleep on the floor and you do the work that you can, and you can stay here. Right? So it was just that entire kind of relationship building, and just hanging out with them, and it's been incredible.
Yeah. I think, we got a small glimpse of the gifts that you're bringing to this community with who you are. And I know you said 2,500 families isn't that much. But clearly to you, it means so much. And I also know your vision is to impact millions. And hopefully we can help you do that. It's a privilege to be on this journey with you, brother. Thank you so much.
Thank you, man.
Thank you. Neil!